"We're reorganizing the territory," my boss explained, not meeting my eyes. "Your position is being eliminated." I sat across from Marcus Reed in his office at Veltrix Optics, staring at the termination letter he'd slid across his desk. The ink on the $2 million contract I'd just secured wasn't even dry yet. "I understand," I replied, my voice calm despite the storm brewing inside me. "Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Cassandra Doyle, a 36-year-old senior sales executive in Plano, Texas, and I'd just been robbed of the biggest commission check of my career. For 8 months, I'd poured everything into landing this client, Horizon Innovations. I'd flown across the country 12 times, sat through 43 negotiation rounds, personalized countless pitch decks, and built a relationship with their CEO that went beyond business. And now, 2 weeks before my commission would pay out, Marcus had decided my position was redundant. As I packed my desk, I noticed my coworkers stealing glances at me, their expressions a mix of pity and relief that they weren't in my shoes. Marcus had timed this perfectly, right at 4 p.m. on a Friday when most executives had already left for weekend golf games. The office politics playbook at its finest. "I'm so sorry, Cassandra," whispered Violet from accounting as she passed by. "Everyone knows this isn't right." I smiled at her, maintaining my composure. "It's just business, right?" But it wasn't just business. It was personal. The Horizon deal wasn't just another client. It represented my career pinnacle after 15 years in the industry. That commission would have paid off my mother's medical bills from last year's unexpected surgery. Marcus knew all this. We'd discussed it over drinks just last month when he'd congratulated me on nearly closing the deal. I took one last look at the office where I'd spent 5 years of my life before walking out, head held high. In the elevator, I checked my phone and saw a text from Jonah Freeman, Horizon's CEO. "Dinner still on for Wednesday to celebrate the partnership?" A small smile formed on my lips. What Marcus didn't understand was that business wasn't just about contracts and numbers. It was about relationships. And my relationship with Jonah wasn't just professional. We'd built a foundation of mutual respect and trust over the past 8 months. He'd shared stories about his children. I'd talked about my dreams of starting my own consultancy someday. As I reached my car, I made a decision. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. For 5 years, I'd been one of Veltrix's top performers. I'd built my client roster from scratch, turning struggling accounts into gold mines. Last year alone, I'd brought in $4.3 million in new business. The sales plaques and achievement awards gathering dust in a box in my trunk were testament to that. But Veltrix had been changing. 3 months ago, Gregory Hansen took over as CEO, bringing Marcus Reed with him as the new vice president of sales. The whispers started immediately. They were restructuring to maximize shareholder value, corporate speak for cutting corners. I'd noticed the warning signs but dismissed them. The cancellation of the annual sales retreat. The new streamlined commission structure that somehow always calculated to less than before. The subtle pressure to hand over client relationships to the account management team. My closest colleague, Thomas, had warned me. "They're pushing out the old guard, Cass," he'd said over lunch. "Replacing experienced salespeople with fresh graduates they can pay half as much." I didn't believe it would happen to me, not with my numbers. Not with the Horizon deal so close to closing. Growing up, my father always told me, "In business, loyalty goes both ways." He'd worked 30 years at the same company, climbing from the mailroom to management. But that world was gone. Today's corporate landscape rewarded the ruthless, people like Marcus who viewed employees as expendable resources. As I drove home, I called my mother. I couldn't bring myself to tell her about being fired. Not yet. Not when I'd promised to help with her medical bills. "How's my superstar?" she asked cheerfully. "Just fine, Mom," I lied, forcing brightness into my voice. "How are you feeling today?" "Better than yesterday, worse than tomorrow," she quipped. It was her standard response since the surgery. After hanging up, I sat in my parked car, staring at my condominium building, trying to formulate a plan. My severance would cover expenses for 3 months, but without the commission, I'd need to dip into my savings for Mom's next payment. Unless... I scrolled through my contacts until I found Jonah's number. Our weekly dinner had become a tradition during the negotiation process. He valued authenticity. It was what had drawn Horizon to Veltrix in the first place. Or more accurately, to me. I hesitated for only a moment before pressing call. The line rang twice before Jonah's familiar voice answered. Cassandra, I was just thinking about you. Still on for Wednesday? Absolutely, I replied. But Jonah, there's something we need to discuss. Wednesday evening found me at La Cantera, an upscale restaurant in downtown Plano, where Jonah and I had celebrated the verbal agreement 2 weeks prior. I'd arrived early, selected a private corner table, and ordered a bottle of Jonah's favorite Cabernet. When he arrived, his smile faltered as he read my expression. Something's wrong, he said, sitting down. I took a deep breath and laid out the facts. No emotional embellishments, no pleas for sympathy. Just the truth. I'd been terminated 2 weeks before my commission would have paid out on the deal I'd architected from initial contact to signed contract. That's... Jonah's face darkened. That's contemptible. It's just business. I repeated the phrase that had become my bitter mantra. No. Jonah set down his wine glass with deliberate care. Business is about relationships and integrity. Without those, it's just theft wearing a suit. Coming from the CEO of a $500 million technology company, the words carried weight. What will you do? He asked. I've received an offer from Crystalline Systems, I said, referring to one of Veltrix's main competitors. They've been trying to recruit me for years. Jonah nodded slowly, his analytical mind working through the implications. And our contract with Veltrix? Has a 14-day rescission clause, I said. We reviewed it together, if you recall. Either party can withdraw without penalty within 2 weeks. I wasn't asking him to cancel. I would never explicitly ask that of him. The decision had to be his, based on his own business judgment. Jonah stared at me for a long moment, then pulled out his phone. Harold, he said to his legal counsel, pull the Veltrix contract. I want to invoke the rescission clause first thing tomorrow. He paused, listening. Yes, I'm certain, and clear my morning schedule for a call with their leadership. After hanging up, he looked at me. This isn't just about your commission, Cassandra. During our negotiations, you promised that you personally would oversee the implementation. That was a material factor in our decision. I nodded, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. Crystalline's product line is actually better suited for your needs, I said truthfully. The optical components have a longer warranty, and their custom design team is more experienced with your specific applications. When can you start there? Jonah asked. Monday. They're eager to have me on board. Good. Jonah raised his glass. Then I look forward to hearing their proposal next week. As we finished dinner, discussing his daughter's college applications and my mother's improving health, I felt no triumph, no vindictive pleasure. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing that in a world where loyalty was increasingly rare, integrity still mattered to some. By the time the check arrived, the first phase of my response to Marcus's betrayal was in motion. Not revenge. Correction. The following morning, my phone began ringing at 7 a.m. Marcus. I sent it to voicemail. He called again. And again. By the fourth call, I decided to answer. Cassandra, he sounded breathless, panicked. We need to talk. About what, Marcus? My position was eliminated, remember? I kept my voice pleasant, as if discussing the weather. Horizon just canceled their contract. Jonah Freeman personally called Gregory and pulled out of the deal. His voice tightened. Did you have anything to do with this? How could I? I don't work for Veltrix anymore. Listen. His tone shifted to conciliatory. There's been a misunderstanding. We want to bring you back. Same position, better compensation package. The territory reorganization has been postponed. I almost laughed at the transparency of it. That's a generous offer, Marcus, but I've already accepted a position with Crystalline Systems. I start Monday. The silence on the other end was deafening. Crystalline, you can't do that. Your non-compete doesn't apply when I've been terminated without cause. I finished for him. Page 4, paragraph 3 of my employment contract. I reviewed it with my attorney yesterday. Another long pause. What did you tell Freeman? The truth, that I was terminated shortly after securing his business. Damn it, Cassandra. The mask of professionalism slipped. Do you have any idea what you've done? The board is going ballistic. This was a cornerstone deal for the quarter. It sounds stressful, I said, feeling a strange sense of calm. I should let you go so you can handle that situation. Best of luck, Marcus. As I ended the call, I received a text from Violet. Office is chaos. Gregory called emergency meeting. Marcus looks like he's about to explode. I didn't respond. Instead, I drove to Crystalline's headquarters for an early meeting with their executive team. The gleaming glass building stood in stark contrast to Veltrix's aging office park. Inside, I was greeted by Eleanor Walsh, the CEO who had been courting me for years. Welcome to the team, Cassandra, she said, her handshake firm. We're thrilled to have you. Thank you for the opportunity, I replied, the words carrying more sincerity than when I'd said them to Marcus. Eleanor led me to a conference room where the executive team waited. Cassandra's joining us from Veltrix, she announced. And she's already creating waves. Horizon Innovations canceled their contract with Veltrix this morning. The executives exchanged glances. Now, Eleanor continued, we have a narrow window of opportunity here. Cassandra has a relationship with Horizon's CEO. We need to move quickly to present our solution before their procurement team looks at other options. I cleared my throat. I've tentatively scheduled a meeting with Jonah next Wednesday. He's expecting our proposal. Eleanor's smile widened. Perfect. Let's make sure it's irresistible. For the next 3 days, I worked with Crystalline's product team to create a custom package for Horizon. Unlike Veltrix's one-size-fits-all approach, we tailored every aspect to their specific needs. The pricing structure I proposed was actually lower than Veltrix's, with better terms and stronger guarantees. This could be a $2.5 million deal, noted the finance director after reviewing my numbers. With expansion potential to $4 million within 2 years, I added. By Monday afternoon, my phone had accumulated 8 voicemails from Marcus and 3 from Gregory, each more desperate than the last. The final one came just as I was leaving Crystalline's office. Cassandra, this is Gregory Hansen. Whatever Crystalline is paying you, we'll beat it. Name your price. We need you back. I deleted it without responding. Some bridges, once burned, weren't worth rebuilding. Wednesday arrived with unexpected tension. Despite my confidence in Crystalline's superior offering, years in sales had taught me that nothing was certain until contracts were signed. As our team prepared to leave for the meeting with Horizon, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. It's Thomas. Used Violet's phone. Urgent. Marcus is meeting with Jonah right now, offering 30% discount plus free implementation. My stomach dropped. Marcus was making a desperate countermove. I showed the message to Eleanor. Can we head over now? I asked. I think we may need to get ahead of this. Eleanor nodded grimly, and we left immediately. Upon arriving at Horizon's headquarters, the receptionist informed us that Jonah was in a meeting, but had left instructions to send us to conference room B when we arrived. Walking through the familiar hallways felt surreal, like returning to a place I'd only dreamed about. When we entered the conference room, I stopped short. Sitting at the table was not only Jonah but Marcus, looking smug, and Gregory, who seemed surprised by our entrance. "Cassandra," Jonah stood, smiling warmly. "Perfect timing. These gentlemen from Veltrix were just explaining why I should reconsider my cancellation." Marcus's expression shifted from confidence to discomfort as I introduced Eleanor and the Crystalline team. "We were under the impression we had an exclusive meeting," Gregory said, his tone clipped. "I invited both parties," Jonah replied evenly. "I believe in making informed decisions." What followed was the most unusual presentation of my career. Marcus outlined Veltrix's desperate concessions, price cuts, extended warranties, free training, while I presented Crystalline's thoughtful, customized solution. Throughout it all, Jonah watched, asking occasional questions but giving no indication of his preference. When both presentations concluded, Jonah thanked everyone. "This has been enlightening. I'll need to confer with my team before making a decision." Outside the building, Marcus cornered me in the parking lot. "You won't get away with this," he hissed. "You have no idea what you're up against." "I'm up against a man who fired me to avoid paying my commission," I replied calmly. "I think I understand the situation perfectly." His face reddened. "It wasn't personal. It was a business decision." "And this is my business decision," I gestured toward Horizon's building. "May the best solution win." Back at Crystalline, Eleanor was surprisingly upbeat. "You did well in there. Freeman was clearly more engaged during your presentation." "He's thorough," I cautioned. "He won't make a decision based on personalities." 2 agonizing days passed. Then, on Friday afternoon, my phone rang with Jonah's number. "We've made our decision," he said without preamble. "Can you come to my office at 4 p.m.? The drive to Horizon felt like traversing a minefield. Had Marcus's desperation tactics worked? Had the substantial price cut swayed Jonah's procurement team? When I arrived, I was escorted directly to Jonah's office. To my surprise, no one from Veltrix was present, just Jonah and his team. "Cassandra," he greeted me. "I want you to explain to our team exactly how Crystalline's optical sensors will integrate with our existing systems." For the next hour, I detailed the implementation process, answering technical questions from Horizon's engineers. When we finished, Jonah stood and extended his hand. "We'll go with Crystalline. The contract is being drawn up as we speak." Relief washed over me, followed quickly by professional composure. "You won't regret it. The product truly is superior." "I know," he said, "but equally important is working with people of integrity." 1 month later, I sat in my new corner office at Crystalline, reviewing the finalized contract with Horizon. The deal had indeed come in at $2.5 million, with a clear path to expansion. My commission would be considerably larger than what I would have earned at Veltrix, with a more favorable payment structure. Violet had texted me updates in the aftermath. Marcus had been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation into his management practices. 3 other sales executives had resigned in solidarity with my situation. Veltrix's stock had dropped 11% following the loss of the Horizon deal and subsequent departures. But the most satisfying development came that morning in the form of an email from Harold, Horizon's legal counsel. He'd forwarded me an internal message from Jonah to his executive team. Our decision to partner with Crystalline over Veltrix wasn't just about pricing or product specifications. It was about aligning ourselves with a company that demonstrates the values we espouse. When Veltrix terminated Ms. Doyle immediately after she secured our business, explicitly to avoid paying her commission, they revealed their true corporate character. Such short-sighted greed doesn't align with our long-term partnership goals. Crystalline, by contrast, recognized talent and integrity and moved decisively to acquire it. That's the kind of business instinct we respect. I printed the email and pinned it to my wall, not as a trophy, but as a reminder of what truly mattered in business. Eleanor stopped by my office that afternoon. "I just got off the phone with Bedford Industries. Apparently, their procurement officer heard about how we acquired the Horizon contract and wants to discuss moving their business to us. I raised an eyebrow. Bedford. They've been with Veltrix for years. 7 years, she confirmed, worth about $1.8 million annually. They're concerned about stability and leadership over there. Word was spreading. What Marcus had done to me wasn't just an isolated incident of corporate callousness. It was becoming a cautionary tale in our industry. That evening, as I was preparing to leave, my assistant forwarded a voicemail from Gregory Hansen. "Cassandra, this is Gregory. I want you to know that Marcus Reed no longer works at Veltrix. His actions were not authorized by me or the board. We'd still like to discuss your potential return. Please call me." I deleted the message without a second thought. My new office had a view of the downtown skyline. My team was skilled and motivated. My compensation package included equity in a growing company that valued relationships over quarterly numbers. More importantly, I'd received a call from my mother's doctor that morning. The latest tests showed significant improvement. With my new financial situation, I'd been able to move her to a better specialist, one not covered by her insurance. As I drove home, I reflected on the past 5 weeks. I hadn't sought revenge when Marcus betrayed me. I'd simply ensured that consequences found him through his own actions. I hadn't torn down Veltrix. They'd undermined themselves by prioritizing short-term gains over sustainable relationships. My phone buzzed with a text from Jonah. "Implementation team says everything's ahead of schedule. Dinner next week to celebrate?" "Absolutely," I replied. "First round's on me." My father's words about loyalty going both ways echoed in my mind. While the corporate world had changed since his time, some principles remained eternal: integrity, relationships, and the understanding that how you treated people always came back to you in the end. Marcus had taught me a valuable lesson, though not the one he intended. In business, as in life, your reputation wasn't built on what you said, but on what you did, especially when you thought no one was watching. 6 months after joining Crystalline, I stood at a podium accepting the Sales Executive of the Year award at the annual industry conference. Looking out at the audience, I spotted several familiar faces from Veltrix, including Gregory, who offered a tight smile when our eyes met. My acceptance speech was brief and focused on the importance of business ethics and relationship building. I didn't mention Veltrix or the circumstances that led to my departure. I didn't need to. Everyone in the room knew the story. Success in sales isn't just about closing deals, I concluded. It's about creating true partnerships where both sides win. When we forget that, we're no longer sales professionals. We're just transaction processors. The applause was gratifying, but what happened afterward was even more so. A steady stream of industry colleagues approached me, some to offer congratulations, others seeking advice, and a few, quietly, inquiring about opportunities at Crystalline. Bedford Industries had indeed moved their business to us, followed by 2 other major Veltrix clients. Our company's market share had grown 15%, while Veltrix's had declined by almost 20%. Jonah found me at the reception afterward. "Congratulations," he said, clinking his glass against mine. "Well deserved." "Thank you for taking a chance on Crystalline," I replied. "How's the implementation going?" "Ahead of schedule and under budget," he said. "Your team is exceptional." "They are," I agreed, "and so is yours." We chatted briefly about future projects before he was called away by another associate. As I watched him leave, Eleanor approached. "Have you seen this?" she asked, showing me her tablet. The headline read, "Veltrix Optics announces layoffs amid continuing market struggles." The article mentioned that Gregory Hansen had stepped down as CEO, replaced by the board chairman as interim leadership. I felt no joy at the news, only a sense of inevitability. The autumn wind scattered leaves across the sidewalk as I approached the care facility where my mother now lived. Thanks to my improved financial situation, she had a private room in the best rehabilitation center in Plano, with daily physical therapy and cutting-edge treatments. "There's my girl," she beamed as I entered, setting aside the book she'd been reading. At 68, she still had the sharp wit and warm smile that had guided me through life's challenges. "How's the new medication working?" I asked, taking the chair beside her bed. "The doctor says I'm responding better than expected," she replied. "I might be able to move back to my own place by Christmas." "That's wonderful, Mom." "And how's my corporate warrior doing? Still conquering the business world?" I smiled, updating her on recent developments. I'd been promoted to Vice President of Strategic Accounts at Crystalline, with a team of 12 sales executives reporting to me. The Horizon implementation had been so successful that they'd expanded the contract to include 2 additional divisions, bringing the total value to $3.8 million. "You know what your father would say about all this," she said, a wistful look crossing her face. "Success is best when it's earned honestly," I quoted. She nodded. "He would be so proud of you, Cassandra. Not just for your achievements, but for how you've achieved them." After leaving the facility, I drove to a local coffee shop where I'd agreed to meet Thomas. He'd left Veltrix the previous month and had been interviewing with several companies. "I've got good news," he said as soon as I sat down. "I accepted an offer from Meridian Technologies." "Congratulations. Sales position?" "Sales director," he replied, unable to contain his grin. 15% higher base than Veltrix, better commission structure. "They're lucky to have you," I said sincerely. "I almost called Marcus to thank him," Thomas joked. "Being associated with Veltrix these days is like having a golden ticket to the competition." As I built my new team and career at Crystalline, I occasionally thought about Marcus and the lesson he had inadvertently taught me. In the end, how we treat others determines not just their fate, but our own. My revenge wasn't in destroying him. It was in succeeding despite his attempt to devalue my contribution. The greatest vindication wasn't watching his downfall, but creating my own ascent.